Beneath the chaotic, beautifully frantic surface of a vanished British comedy era lived a poignant, deeply enduring canvas of absolute devotion, a bittersweet sanctuary of unyielding passion, constant misunderstandings, and the silent sacrifices of a mismatched team trying to build a perfect world together. We laughed endlessly at their spectacular daily disasters, feeling the vibrant, chaotic pulse of their comedic brilliance. But behind the grand dreams of the leisure center and the legendary office crises, a silent, unyielding architect was already rewriting their destinies, the quiet passage of time. Stepping out from the legendary vintage frames of the Brittas Empire, reality has reshaped the fates of these beloved stars in ways no script could ever foresee. While their comedic energy feels immortal today in 2026, some precious souls still carry that artistic torch, while other irreplaceable legends have quietly slipped into the shadows of eternity, making this retrospective look back feel incredibly heavy, deep, and beautifully heartbreaking. This video will guide you through their real names, true ages, and the deeply private lives they led after the final whistle blew. Please try to watch until the very end, because the one thing that will truly break our hearts is waiting for you in those final seconds. 1. Chris Berry. In the Brittas Empire, Gordon Brittas was the manager no one could escape. Polite, determined, disaster-prone, and convinced that every catastrophe could be solved with another memo. Chris Berry, born Christopher Jonathan Brown on March 28, 1960, played him from 1991 to 1997. By 2026, Berry is alive and 66 years old, still remembered as one of British sitcom's most perfectly unbearable comic creations. Behind that rigid, fast-talking comedic exterior lay a man wrestling with the immense weight of sudden fame. Splitting his time between starring as the neurotic Brittas and the iconic Arnold Rimmer in Red Dwarf, the relentless filming schedules brought severe exhaustion and quiet battles with performance anxiety. What truly surprises and touches fans is how Berry managed this crushing pressure. Far from the chaotic energy he projected on screen, he was a deeply reserved, anxious person. Today, Chris Berry's net worth stands at an estimated $4 million. In a beautiful twist that delights fans, his real-life passion mirrors his professional success. He possesses a magnificent, carefully curated, vintage car collection, including classic Jaguars and sports cars. 2. Michael Burns. In the Brittas Empire, Colin Weatherby is chaos wrapped in nervous loyalty, the unhygienic, unlucky, yet strangely devoted deputy manager of Whitbury Leisure Center. Michael Burns, born December 30th, 1947, played Colin from 1991 to 1997. By 2026, he is 78 years old, alive, and still remembered as one of the sitcom's most bizarrely lovable characters. The devastating events struck when psychological darkness and nervous breakdown progressed too rapidly, directly threatening his will to live and his life, completely stripping him of his usual health and radiant smile, turning Michael Burns into a frail patient requiring close monitoring in a hospital bed. For Michael Burns, the long period of facing emptiness, loneliness, and the pressure of emergency medical interventions, the ravages of panic attacks that left him physically exhausted, and the days of physical and mental exhaustion were the most brutal battle for survival of his life. By 2026, Michael Burns holds an eternal, irreplaceable position in the hearts of nostalgic comedy purists worldwide, maintaining a highly respected private lifestyle with an estimated personal estate of $500,000. Completely shunning the ostentatious vanity of modern luxury car collections, his true wealth remains beautifully preserved. 3. Tim Marriott. In the Brittas Empire, Gavin Featherly was the gentle heart inside Whitbury Newtown Leisure Center. Played by Tim Marriott, Gavin began as a pool attendant and later became acting deputy manager, bringing kindness, nervous dignity, and quiet emotion into a world ruled by Gordon Brittas's chaos. By 2026, Marriott is still alive and remains connected to theater and performance. A devastating crisis struck when Tim Marriott's hyperlipidemia silently progressed, pushing his lipid levels beyond alarming limits and directly threatening his cardiovascular system. This completely stripped him of his usual health and agility, turning him into a frail patient facing imminent stroke risks. Tim Marriott endured extreme exhaustion from medication side effects, profound anxiety in the face of the impending stroke, and the vague fear of a potentially collapsing cardiovascular system. But now, all of that is behind him, as his blood indicators miraculously recover. Tim Marriott's wealth isn't measured in a fleet of flashy sports cars, but in a solid net, worth estimated around $1.5 million and an immeasurable wealth of respect. As we stand in 2026, he occupies a nostalgic, bittersweet place in the hearts of British sitcom fans. 4. Russell Porter. In the Brittas Empire, Tim Whistler was the nervous pulse beneath the chaos, emotional, jealous, funny, and often one step away from falling apart. Played by Russell Porter, born in 1964, Tim worked at Whitbury Newtown Leisure Center as a pool attendant and chef. By 2026, Porter is alive and around 62 years old, remembered by sitcom fans as part of one of British comedy's most unusual workplaces. A devastating crisis struck when severe stomach ulcers proliferated and developed dangerous complications, completely robbing Russell Porter of his usual health and radiant smile, turning him into a frail patient under close monitoring in a hospital bed. Russell Porter endured extreme exhaustion after surgery, profound confusion in the face of the darkness of his illness, and vague fears about the long-term effects on his health. But now, as of 2026, Russell Porter leads a private, comfortable life in the UK, away from public financial scrutiny or lavish car collections. His true wealth lies in his enduring contribution to British comedy. To fans of 90s television, he remains a cherished piece of a golden era, a comforting echo of a time when Thursday nights meant laughing at the beautiful mess of life. 5. Harriet Thorpe. In the Brittas Empire, Carol Parkinson is heartbreak wrapped in farce, the tearful receptionist of Whitbury Leisure Center, hiding her children in drawers and cupboards while trying to survive another impossible day under Gordon Brittas. Harriet Thorpe, born June 8, 1957, played Carol from 1991 to 1997. By 2026, she is 68 years old, alive, and still active on British television. While her on-screen alter ego lived in a perpetual state of nervous breakdown, Harriet's real life has been defined by remarkable resilience. She faced the profound loss of her close friend, the legendary comedian Victoria Wood, to cancer. Instead of retreating into private grief, Harriet channeled that heartbreak into action, becoming a passionate ambassador for breast cancer charity Walk the Walk. She has walked the famous overnight moonwalk more than 20 times, a moving testament to friendship, memory. She conquered legendary stage roles in Wicked and Les Miserables, and since 2023, she has ruled Albert Square as the fierce landlady Elaine Peacock in EastEnders. Now commanding a net worth estimated around $2 million, she prefers the enduring affection of a live audience over flashy collections of sports cars, securing her place as a true national treasure. 6. Pippa Haywood. In the Brittas Empire, Helen Brittas was the exhausted soul living in the shadow of Gordon Brittas's impossible optimism. Played by Pippa Haywood, born May 6, 1961, Helen was nervous, fragile, funny, and often close to collapse as her husband turned ordinary life into chaos. By 2026, Haywood is 65 years old and still alive. A devastating crisis struck when severe ulcerative colitis complications escalated and flared up, completely robbing Pippa Haywood of her usual health and radiant smile, turning her into a frail patient requiring close monitoring in a hospital bed. The long period in the intensive care unit, the immense pressure of emergency treatments, the ravages of agonizing spasms, and the days of exhaustion and malnutrition became the most brutal battle for survival of her life. Pippa Haywood endured extreme internal exhaustion, profound despair in the face of her illness, and a vague fear of necrosis or devastating long-term consequences for her life. By 2026, Haywood has built a secure estate with a net worth of around $4 million, retaining a modest, elegant lifestyle far removed from flashy car collections. For decades of viewers, she remains a deeply cherished icon of British comedy. 7. Jill Greenacre. In the Brittas Empire, Linda Perkins was the cheerful believer inside Whitbury New Town Leisure Centre, kind, hard-working, and almost impossibly loyal to Gordon Brittas, even when his plans made no sense at all. Jill Greenacre, born on June 3, 1960, played Linda from 1991 to 1997. By 2026, she is alive and 66 years old, remembered as one of the warmest faces in the chaos. A devastating crisis struck when the malignant tumor became severely complicated and spread excessively, completely robbing Jill Greenacre of her usual health and radiant smile, turning her into a frail patient requiring close monitoring in a hospital bed. The long period spent in the intensive care unit, the immense pressure from emergency surgical interventions, the devastating physical and mental pain, and the exhausting days following intensive treatment regimens became the most brutal battle for survival of her life. As of 2026, Jill Greenacre lives a comfortable, private life in the UK. She has never sought a lavish lifestyle, a massive net worth, or a luxury car collection. Her true wealth lies in the enduring affection of generations of viewers. To us, she remains that bright, kind-hearted presence by the pool, a gentle reminder. 8. Judy Flynn. In the Brittas Empire, Julie Porter is sarcasm wrapped in a Yorkshire accent. Gordon Brittas's secretary, sharp-tongued, impatient, and never afraid to show exactly how little she enjoys working at Whitbury Leisure Centre. Judy Flynn, born in 1963, played Julie from Series 2 to Series 7 between 1992 and 1997. By 2026, she is about 63 years old, alive, and still remembered as one of the sitcom's funniest survivors. Behind the scenes of her steady career, Judy faced a deeply personal battle that caught many off guard. She was diagnosed with a rare and debilitating condition that caused her immense physical pain. For years, she quietly fought this health crisis away from the cameras, experiencing a profound sense of isolation as she stepped back from the industry. It was a heartbreaking chapter for a woman who spent decades making millions laugh, yet she chose to keep her struggles private, protecting her family from the media storm. Rather than chasing massive car collections or flashy mansions, she invested her life in the craft, amassing a respected net worth estimated at $1.5 million. 35 years since her debut at the front desk, Judy remains a nostalgic anchor for fans, a comforting reminder of a golden era of television. 9. Julia St. John. In the Brittas Empire, Laura Lansing was the calm voice trying to bring sense into Gordon Brittas's impossible world. Played by Julia St. John, born January the 4th, 1960, Laura was intelligent, patient, and quietly strong. The deputy manager who often seemed to understand the leisure center better than anyone else. By 2026, St. John is 66 years old, and according to available public records, still alive. A devastating crisis struck when severe liver cancer cells mutated and spread uncontrollably, completely robbing Julia St. John of her usual health and radiant smile, turning her into a frail patient requiring close monitoring in a hospital bed. Long periods in the intensive care unit, the immense pressure of emergency surgical interventions, and the ravages of physical and mental pain. Julia Street. John endured extreme internal exhaustion, profound despair in the face of her illness, and a vague fear of a death sentence or devastating long-term consequences for her life. By 2026, she holds a secure net worth estimated around $2 million, choosing an elegant, quiet lifestyle over flashy car collections. To generations of fans, she remains a timeless icon of class and calm, a beautiful reminder of how gracefully one can step out of the storm when the cameras stop rolling. 10. Stephen Churchitt. In the Brittas Empire, Councillor Jack Drugget was the political face of Whitbury Newtown Leisure Centre, the man who had to smile, approve budgets, and somehow survive Gordon Brittas's endless disasters. Stephen Churchitt, born on April 10, 1947, played Drugget with dry irritation and perfect comic restraint. By 2026, he is remembered with quiet affection as one of those supporting actors who helped make the sitcom's world feel complete. Behind his familiar face lay a deeply private life. In his later years, Churchitt dealt with declining health before passing away peacefully. The sudden news of his departure quietly broke the hearts of British television enthusiasts. He was a man who handled the natural pressures of the industry with immense grace, choosing a dignified, quiet life in his final years, rather than chasing the relentless, flashing lights of modern fame. Instead of seeking Hollywood glitz, Stephen stayed deeply rooted in the UK, building a respected, diverse career across theater, television, and scriptwriting. When he passed, he left a modest, private estate, far removed from lavish car collections. His true wealth was measured in the quiet, enduring respect of his peers and a lasting place in our collective memory as a master of classic British television. 11. Anushka Menzies. In the Brittas Empire, Penny Bidmead is glamour wrapped in disruption, the confident manager of the newly privatized sauna and beauty department, arriving at Whitbury Leisure Centre after Laura's departure. Anushka Menzies played Penny in Series 6 in 1996. Her exact date of birth has not been reliably published, and by 2026, there is no confirmed public death record. A devastating crisis struck when ovarian cancer cells seriously complicated and flared up, completely depriving Anushka Menzies of her healthy body and usual radiant smile, turning Anushka Menzies into a weak patient who had to be closely monitored in a hospital bed. The long period of time spent in the recovery room, the extreme pressure from emergency surgical interventions, the devastation of physical and mental pain, and the days when the body was exhausted after intensive treatments became the most fierce battle for survival in life. Today, Anushka commands a highly respected career as a major industry director with a net worth estimated around $3 million. Rather than boasting flashy sports car collections, her wealth is rooted in a thriving business empire she built from the ground up. 12. Andre Bernard. In the Brittas Empire, Angie Burton was Gordon Brittas's first secretary when Whitbury Newtown Leisure Centre opened its doors. Played by Andre Bernard, born November 29, 1966, Angie appeared throughout the first series in 1991. She was calmer and kinder than the later secretary Julie, often trying to soften the chaos around her. By 2026, Bernard is 59 years old and still alive. A devastating crisis struck when the severe liver cancer cells mutated and spread uncontrollably, completely robbing Andre Bernard of his usual health and radiant smile, turning him into a frail patient under close monitoring in a hospital bed. The long periods spent in the intensive care unit, the immense pressure from emergency surgical interventions, the devastation of physical and mental pain, and the exhausting days following intensive treatment regimens became the most brutal battle for survival of his life. By 2026, she holds a secure net worth estimated around $1.5 million, choosing a grounded, elegant lifestyle over flashy car collections. To generations of comedy fans, she remains a timeless piece of our collective memory, a beautiful reminder of a warmer era and how gracefully an artist can evolve when the final curtain falls.